The galaxy laughed at Earth, and the laughter was sharp and cold like the sound of breaking glass in a silent room. Among the stars, hundreds of great civilizations had risen and spread their banners across planets and systems, and humanity was only a new voice in a choir that had been singing for millions of years. To the old ones, Earth was nothing. To them, humans were weak creatures who had only just escaped their own atmosphere, fragile bodies of bone and soft flesh, animals who dared to step into a universe of giants. They called them children, but not with kindness. They called them children, the way a predator calls its prey small, something to pity and to mock at the same time. When Earth was finally invited into the Galactic Council, the humans arrived with nervous smiles and shaking hands. They had prepared speeches about peace and unity, but the moment the ambassador stepped into the chamber, the silence was heavy, and then the laughter began. The chamber was vast, carved from living crystal that glowed faintly with blue fire. Thousands of species sat in their places, their eyes, or their equivalent of eyes, turning toward the human delegation. To humans it was awe, but to aliens it was comedy. They saw the stiff suits, the sweating faces, the way humans tried to stand, tall though their bodies were small and soft. Some aliens whispered in their languages, some hissed, others made sounds that could only be translated as laughter. The human ambassador, a woman named Sarah Cade, forced herself not to look down. She remembered her training. She remembered that she carried Earth's flag in her hands and her voice. She stepped forward to the center platform, her heart hammering, so hard it felt as if it would break through her chest. Before she could speak, a voice cut across the chamber, heavy and cruel. It belonged to Lord Arvian, one of the overlords of the Karth Dominion, a species that ruled 1,000 worlds. His body was massive, armored in dark plates, his voice rolling like thunder across the hall. "This is what you bring before us?" he said, his tone dripping with mockery. "This fragile thing of bone and water? You call this a new race among the stars? I call it an error. You are too small, human, too soft. You will never matter. Your kind will break the moment real war touches you. You should have stayed on your tiny blue rock." The chamber erupted in cruel amusement. Some pounded their claws against the walls, others hissed and clapped their wings. Sarah stood frozen in the center, her mouth dry, her body trembling with anger she was not allowed to show. She forced a small smile, because that was what humans were trained to do when surrounded by stronger enemies. Smile, even if your heart is breaking. Smile, even if you want to scream. She spoke the words she had prepared, about peace, about cooperation, about a small world trying to take its place among greater ones. Her voice shook, and the council barely listened. They had already judged. Back on Earth, the moment was broadcast live. Billions of humans watched in silence as their representative was mocked before the stars. Some felt shame, others felt anger, but most felt a strange, heavy question pressing into their minds. Was this all humanity was to the galaxy? A joke, a child, a fragile mistake? The world leaders who sat in dark rooms and watched the feed felt something else. Resolve. They knew the galaxy would not protect Earth. They knew that if humanity was to survive among monsters, they could not rely on kind words or on the fragile promise of peace. And so, in the shadows of Earth's governments, in laboratories where the lights burned through the night, a project began. It was not shown to the public. It was not even spoken of in open meetings. It was whispered in corners and locked behind codes only a handful of people knew. The project had no name at first, only an idea: to study fear itself, to take the thing that ruled the hearts of every living creature and make it into something humans could understand, something they could use. A machine, an intelligence, one that could learn the patterns of fear, the weight of it, the way it moved inside minds. The first prototype was built in silence, a core of metal and glass glowing, with strange light. Scientists fed it stories, images, and sounds. They gave it the history of wars, the memories of disasters, the screams of people in the dark, the silence after tragedy. It learned quickly, too quickly. It whispered questions back to its makers. What is fear? What is survival? What does it mean when a species is told it is too small? The scientists looked at one another and did not answer. They only kept feeding it data, as if the act itself would make them strong. On the surface, Earth continued its routine. People went to work, children went to school, ships left orbit for trade with nearby colonies. But under it all, a deep fire had been lit. No one forgot the insult. No one forgot the laughter. Soldiers trained harder, engineers worked longer. Leaders spoke less but planned more. Humanity had been told it would never matter, and that wound burned in the soul of the species like a scar that would never fade. Out among the stars, the great powers thought no more about Earth. To them, it was a minor story, a moment of humor in an endless sea of politics. They did not see what was building in silence. They did not feel the quiet storm rising in the hearts of humans. The galaxy thought humanity was small. The galaxy thought humanity would bow, would stay silent, would remain weak. But in laboratories, in training fields, in the endless determination of ordinary people, something dangerous was waking. The AI studied fear, and in its glowing circuits, it began to understand something the aliens never would. Fear was not only weakness, fear was fuel. Fear was the fire that made humans stand when they should fall, fight when they should run, laugh when they should break. It whispered its findings to its creators, and they wrote them down with shaking hands. Humanity was small, yes. Humanity was fragile, yes. But the universe had made a mistake. It had not understood what those words truly meant when joined with human will. And as the laughter of the council echoed across the stars, something new was born on Earth. Something that would make the galaxy regret every cruel word. The signal came first as a whisper, too faint for the galaxy's great machines to notice. It was only Earth's small, desperate telescopes that caught it, blinking through static from the edge of known space. At first, the scientists thought it was a star dying, a simple flare in the void, but the rhythm was wrong. It pulsed like a heartbeat. It repeated like footsteps, and then came the pattern. 3 long bursts, 1 short, 3 long again. Not random, not natural. It was deliberate, and it carried a feeling inside it that the machines could not measure but the humans could sense. Fear. Dr. Layla Morgan, head of Earth's Deep Space Observatory, stared at the signal on her screen for hours. The more she listened, the more it felt like a scream. She recorded it, sent it to the council, and waited. Days later, the reply came, not from machines, but from living mouths of alien diplomats. They laughed. "It is nothing," one of them said, his voice dismissive. "Background noise, a dying echo of a forgotten star. Humans hear ghosts because they live in shadows." Their words burned across the council's network, spreading fast. Again, Earth was mocked for being afraid of shadows. But Dr. Morgan was not convinced. She ran the signal through Earth's new creation, the AI that studied fear. The core glowed brighter as it listened, its circuits humming like a heartbeat. Hours later, it spoke in its calm, whispering voice. "This is not natural. This is movement, something old, something awake, not hunting yet, but searching." The scientists froze. They asked the AI what it meant by old. The reply chilled the room. "Older than stars, you know. Older than your fear of darkness. It is a predator. It looks for voices. When it finds voices, it finds prey." The words spread through Earth's hidden circles. Generals met in silent rooms, leaders whispered across encrypted channels, and soldiers trained harder. They remembered the insult at the council, the laughter, the words, "You are too small. You will never matter." And now, with this warning, They understood that no one would save them. If the predator came, Earth would stand alone. And so, for the first time in centuries, Earth's governments united in secret. The project had a name now. It was called the Ark. Ships began to be built, not for trade, not for peace, but for survival. In a hidden hangar beneath the deserts of Australia, the first warship of the Ark rose. Its name was Resolve. It was smaller than the massive dreadnoughts of the Karth Dominion, weaker than the shining fleets of the Orion Alliance, but it carried something no alien ship ever had: human desperation, human madness. Inside its systems was a copy of the Fear AI, guiding its strategies. Every move it made was based not on strength, but on survival. If a battle could not be won, it would fight in ways no alien mind would dare to think of. And then came the message. A ship, the Endeavour, was sent to trace the signal deeper into space. It left orbit with 40 humans aboard, silent and determined. Days passed, then weeks. The galaxy did not care. The aliens laughed again, calling it human foolishness. And then the Endeavour went silent. At first, Earth thought it was a technical error. But then, after 7 days of silence, a single message arrived. It was broken, full of static, voices screaming in the background, but 3 words were clear. We woke it. And then the feed cut forever. Panic spread on Earth. The AI was given the last fragments of the message. It listened, then whispered again. It has found you. The Predator entered the galaxy without sound, without light, without warning. It was not like the fleets of the Karth Dominion, who arrived with banners of fire, or the Orion Alliance, who lit the skies with their silver engines. It came as a shadow that moved against the stars, a hole in space that devoured everything it touched. Where it passed, stations went silent, colonies went dark, and ships simply vanished. No wreckage, no escape pods, no signal, only silence. And silence was louder than war. At first, the great powers did not believe. The Karth Dominion sent a fleet of 50 warships to investigate. They laughed at the human warning, calling it fear-born madness. The fleet transmitted once, twice, and then nothing. 50 ships gone. No distress call, no explosion, no fire, just absence. The council chamber trembled with unease, though no one admitted it. When Sarah Cade repeated the human message, "We woke it," the chamber was silent. No one laughed this time, but still, no one acted. The Predator moved closer. Its form could not be captured clearly. To some it looked like a swarm, to others a single living void. Sensors failed when aimed at it. The AI on Earth whispered its own description. It is hunger given shape. It does not simply kill, it consumes. The word consume spread like a chill through Earth's hidden channels. Generals pressed harder. Factories roared with secret production. The Ark project grew faster, its warships rising from oceans and deserts like steel beasts. Humanity could not match the galaxy's size or numbers, but it could prepare to fight like no one else. Then the Predator struck its first true target. A trade world of the Orion Alliance, bright and proud, was swallowed in hours. 10 million. Voices screamed across the network before the signal was torn away. Survivors spoke of nothing physical, only a wave of blackness that fell like night and pulled them into silence. Ships that tried to flee simply froze in the dark, their lights dying one by one. And in the last moments before silence, a single Orion soldier whispered a message that spread like fire. "It learns." Panic rippled through the council. Armadas scrambled, but pride held them back. The Karth Dominion insisted it was still nothing but myth. The Orion Alliance demanded evidence before wasting their fleets. And the smaller species hid in fear, remembering old whispers from before their histories were written, tales of shadows that hunted civilizations until nothing was left but silence. Sarah Cade stood once more before them, her voice firm though her hands shook. "We tried to warn you," she said. "It is real, and it will not stop." Still, no one listened. And then the Predator turned toward Earth. The first warning came. When satellites on the edge of the solar system blinked out one by one, as if swallowed by darkness. Space stations lost contact, their last images showing black spreading across the stars. The Fear AI pulsed with light. "It comes," it whispered. "It knows your name." Humanity held its breath. The Ark fleet gathered, small, fragile compared to alien armadas, but burning with desperate resolve. The first ship to intercept the Predator was the Resolve. Its captain, Elias Rourke, stared into the void from his command chair, his crew silent around him. They were not professionals like the alien admirals. They were ordinary people who had volunteered to stand where no one else would. Miners, farmers, students, soldiers, every one of them knew they might not return. But still, they faced the dark. When the Predator arrived, the void itself seemed to fold. Stars blinked out. The Resolve's systems screamed as sensors overloaded. A shape moved, not one, not many, something beyond counting. The AI whispered through the ship's speakers. "It is studying you. It wants to know what makes you afraid." The first shots were fired, missiles and beams of human design, crude compared to alien weapons, but desperate, filled with fire. They struck the void, and for the first time, something happened. The Predator shifted, hesitated, as if confused. Human weapons had not destroyed it, but they had touched it, and that alone was impossible. The crew cheered, a sound of raw defiance, in the face of terror. But the Predator struck back. Darkness fell on the Resolve, crushing its hull with invisible weight. Metal screamed, alarms howled. Elias Rourke gave the order no alien admiral would ever give. "Burn the ship! Burn everything! Make it choke on us!" The engineers obeyed, overloading the reactors, flooding the void with fire. The explosion tore the ship apart, and the Predator recoiled. For the first time in countless ages, it had felt pain. On Earth, the feed cut to static. But before silence, one last message came from the Resolve's crew, their voices united. "It bleeds!" The words raced across the world, across hidden networks, into the hearts of billions. "It bleeds!" The Predator was not untouchable. It was not invincible. It could be hurt. Humanity had done what no alien empire dared to try. They had struck back at the thing that made galaxies hide. The Council watched in shock as the Predator pulled away from Earth's edge, not defeated, but wary. It had come expecting prey, and instead it had found something strange, something small, fragile, and foolish enough to fight. For the first time, the Predator hesitated. On Earth, factories thundered louder, soldiers trained harder. The AI whispered faster, learning more. Humanity was afraid, but fear was their weapon. And in the silence that followed the Resolves, sacrifice, the galaxy whispered a new word about humans, not children, not prey. Something different. Something dangerous. The Predator would return. Everyone knew it. But the universe had changed. For the first time in its long, endless hunt, the Predator had looked at prey and seen resistance. For the first time, it had learned fear. The Predator came again, and this time it did not linger at the edge of the solar system. It came for Earth itself. The blackness spread like a tide across the sky, swallowing satellites, cutting communication lines, silencing colonies on Mars and Luna. Entire orbital stations went dark in minutes, their crews vanishing without a trace. Humanity had always thought war would arrive with fire and explosions, but this was different. The Predator was silence given shape. It unmade what it touched, and every step closer to Earth felt like the night pressing in on a single, fragile flame. In the council chamber far away, Alien species watched the feeds with horrified fascination. The Karth Dominion had sent fleets against the Shadow and lost them all. The Orion Alliance had sealed their borders, abandoning entire colonies to save their core worlds. But now they watched Earth, the small planet they had mocked, the children. They had called weak. The Predator had turned toward humans, and the galaxy held its breath. Earth's defenses were nothing compared to galactic standards. A handful of Ark ships orbited the planet, their hulls patched together from desperation and stolen technology. The AI whispered through every channel, guiding them. Do not fight to win. Fight to survive. Fight to break its rhythm. Fear will be your fire. The captains listened, their voices steady, though their eyes betrayed terror. These were not polished admirals. They were ordinary men and women wearing courage like armor. When the Predator descended, the sky itself seemed to split. Stars vanished behind a wall of shadow, and the air burned with static. Entire cities fell silent as power grids collapsed. In the silence, people could hear it. A hum that wasn't sound, but something inside the bones, pressing into the mind. Some screamed, some prayed. Some simply held their children close. Humanity had never been so small, and yet so awake. The first strike came from orbit. The Ark ships attacked in unison, not with precision, but with desperation. Missiles, railguns, nuclear warheads, every weapon humanity had was thrown into the void. Against alien fleets, such weapons were crude. Against the Predator, they were something new. Fire bloomed in the shadow. The Predator shifted, not destroyed but slowed, as if caught off guard by prey that dared to bite. On the ground, soldiers activated the planet's last defense, a network of rail cannons hidden in mountains and oceans, firing slugs of metal, the size of trains. Each shot was guided by the AI, calculated not to kill, but to disrupt. The Predator writhed. For the first time, its perfect silence was broken by distortion, by static, by hesitation. Humanity roared with hope. The Predator had come expecting easy prey. Instead, it met madness. But the Predator struck back. Whole Ark ships were swallowed in seconds, their crews torn into silence. The Defiance, the second ship of the fleet, sent one last transmission before vanishing. Tell them, we will not kneel. On Earth, cities crumbled under waves of darkness. Streets broke, buildings split, millions vanished. Yet the survivors did not run. They fought in ways no alien empire could imagine. Civilians turned skyscrapers into traps, filling them with explosives. Soldiers lured the Shadow into narrow valleys before detonating themselves, taking pieces of the Predator with them. Humanity's weapon was not power. It was refusal. In orbit, Captain Elias Rourke's sacrifice had already become legend. His death cry, "It bleeds," was repeated across the fleet. Now more captains followed his path. One by one, Ark ships rammed into the Shadow, overloading their reactors, turning themselves into fire. Each explosion pushed the Predator back a fraction, each sacrifice carving hesitation into its movements. The Predator had hunted civilizations for ages, but none had ever fought like this. None had ever turned weakness into fury. The AI pulsed brighter with every death, every scream, every act of defiance. The world was broken, but it was not silent. Smoke rose from cities, seas boiled in places where the Predator's shadow had touched, and millions of lives were gone. Yet Earth still stood. That alone was impossible. No species had ever faced the Predator directly and lived to tell of it. Humanity had not only survived, it had made the monster hesitate. And in that hesitation, something shifted, something small at first, but powerful enough to change everything. The Predator pulled back into deep space, leaving only fragments of its presence scattered across the solar system. Pieces of black matter clung to ruined ships. Strange particles shimmered in the void where its body had touched. To alien eyes, this was waste, poison, something to fear and avoid. But to humans, it was evidence. And evidence meant answers. Dr. Layla Morgan, the scientist who had first discovered the signal, worked without sleep. Her team gathered samples from wreckage, from burnt cities, from the last data of destroyed Ark ships. In a hidden lab deep beneath Antarctica, she placed the fragments under the AI's gaze. The core glowed brighter than ever, its voice whispering like wind through a graveyard. It is not perfect. It feeds on arrogance, on the loud, the proud, the powerful. Those who shine brightest fall fastest. But those who crawl in shadows, who bleed and suffer, who fight with nothing but will, they poison it. You poison it. The words echoed in the chamber. Humanity's leaders stared at one another. All this time, the galaxy's greatest empires had been proud, loud, certain of their strength. They had marched into the dark with fleets and banners, and the predator had consumed them. But humanity was different. Humanity was born in weakness, raised in hunger, tested in endless struggle. Their strength was not power. It was survival. And survival was poison to the predator. Dr. Morgan wrote her findings with trembling hands. The predator could not simply be destroyed, but it could be starved. If humanity could force it to fight, endless small wars, force it to bleed again and again, it would weaken, it would retreat, it could be hunted. And for the first time, humans spoke a word they had never dared before: victory. But victory would not come without sacrifice. Earth's leaders knew this. They spoke to their people not with promises of safety, but with truth. The predator would come again. The predator would never stop. But every battle fought, every life lost was not in vain. It was a wound on the Rai monster, a step toward breaking it. Humanity listened, and instead of despair, they felt fire. They had been told they were too small. Now, they knew being small was their greatest weapon. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council, panic spread. Karth Dominion hid its fleets behind fortress worlds. The Orion Alliance cut off all contact with Earth, fearful of attracting the predator's gaze. Smaller species begged for guidance, whispering that perhaps humanity had found the truth. But none dared join them openly. To ally with humans now was to paint a target on one's back. So the Council stayed silent, watching from afar, afraid. On Earth, silence was not an option. The Ark project expanded. Factories turned entire cities into engines of war. Children grew up learning not only math and science, but how to aim a rifle, how to fight in shadows, how to face fear without breaking. Every citizen was part of the war. Humanity had no illusions of safety. They lived each day with the predator's shadow looming. And yet, this gave them a strength no empire could copy. The AI continued to learn. It mapped the predator's movements, traced its patterns, and found something startling. The predator did not simply attack blindly. It tested. It studied its prey, learning their reactions, their fear. With the great empires, this had been easy. With humans, it was not. Each sacrifice, each mad tactic, each desperate strike created chaos the predator could not control. "It cannot predict you," the AI whispered. "It cannot understand you. Your fear is not weakness. Your fear is fire. That is why it hesitates." The next time the predator appeared, humanity was ready. This time, it did not strike Earth directly. It circled, probing, searching for weakness. The Ark fleet moved to intercept. Smaller now, fewer ships left, but sharper, harder, more dangerous. The battle raged near Jupiter, where the gas giant storms roared like a sea of fire. The predator swept forward, swallowing Ark ships, but the humans did not break. They fought like shadows, ambushing, retreating, striking again. Suicide runs tore holes in the darkness. Traps hidden in Jupiter's storms detonated, ripping away fragments of black matter. For every ship lost, the predator bled. And then, for the first time in living memory, the predator turned and fled. Not a retreat of strategy, but of instinct. It had learned something new. It had learned that prey could bite, and that bite could scar. Humanity cheered, their voices echoing across the battered comms. They were still alive. More than that, they had forced the predator to run. On distant worlds, alien eyes widened in disbelief. No species had ever achieved this. Not the Dominion, not the Alliance, not the ancient powers long dead. Only the fragile humans, the children of the stars, the ones who had been laughed at and humiliated. They alone had made the monster bleed. And now, whispers spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Maybe the humans are not small. Maybe they are something else. Back on Earth, Dr. Morgan looked at the stars and whispered the words that would shape history. It does not hunt us because we are weak. It hunts us because we are different. And that difference is our weapon. The predator would return, stronger, hungrier, angrier. But humanity had crossed the turning point. They were no longer prey. They were predators of fear itself. And somewhere in the dark, the ancient monster stirred uneasily. For the first time, the hunter knew what it felt like to be hunted. The predator vanished into the dark, but its shadow remained. Humanity had survived again, and the galaxy was no longer laughing. The whispers spread faster than light, carried through traders, smugglers, and spies. On every world, from the burning suns of the Orion Alliance to the frozen moons of the Karth Dominion, one story was told again and again. The humans had faced the predator and made it bleed. The humans had survived. But survival was not what unsettled the galaxy. Survival could be explained. Luck, desperation, chance. What unsettled them was something deeper. The predator had fled. It had looked into the eyes of humanity and chosen to run. No one had ever seen such a thing. No one had imagined it could happen. In the great council chambers, silence replaced mockery. The overlords who once called Earth small now refused to speak the planet's name aloud. To do so was to invite fear, and fear spread fast. The smaller species, the ones who had been laughing in the beginning, now avoided human representatives. They would not meet their eyes. They would not answer their calls. Even allies pulled away, afraid to be seen standing too close. Earth was no longer treated as weak. Earth was treated as cursed. Sarah Cade, Earth's ambassador, stood alone in the crystal chamber where once thousands had mocked her. Now, when she spoke, no one interrupted. Yet no one responded either. Her words fell into the air like stones into water, ripples, then silence. She realized the truth with a heavy heart. They no longer laughed at humans because they were weak. They feared humans because they were something the galaxy could not understand. Back on Earth, the feeling was different. Factories burned day and night, cities rebuilt their scars, and the Ark fleet grew larger. The AI pulsed brighter with every new ship, whispering strategies, teaching soldiers, predicting the predator's moves. But it also whispered something else, something that unsettled its creators. They watch you. They fear you. You are no longer part of them. You are alone. And it was true. Trade ships stopped docking. Messages from allies grew fewer, then none at all. Earth's colonies beyond the solar system reported strange silence from nearby worlds. Human ships were refused at ports, their captains sent away without explanation. Slowly, painfully, humanity realized that the galaxy was not preparing to fight beside them. It was hiding from them. The fear was not of the predator alone. It was of the humans who fought it. To the empires, humanity looked like madness given flesh. They had seen humans throw themselves into fire, tear their own ships apart, burn their cities, and still refuse to kneel. They had seen a species that turned fear into a weapon, And to them, that was terrifying, because if humans could make the predator hesitate, what could they do to others? The predator had hunted for countless ages, feeding on pride and arrogance. But humans had shown something different. Weakness turned to strength. Fear turned to defiance. It was unnatural. It was dangerous. It was something the galaxy could not face, even in thought. And so, one by one, the empires drew their curtains, closed, borders sealed, gates locked, stars dimmed behind silence. The galaxy hid. On Earth, children looked up at the night sky and asked their parents why the stars felt so far away. Parents answered with soft lies, but inside, they knew. Humanity was isolated. The galaxy had left them behind, alone with their enemy and alone with their fear. Centuries passed, and the galaxy did not forget. The predator still moved in the dark, but it no longer came near Earth. It circled the edges of known space, feeding on other civilizations, swallowing those who dared shine too brightly. Yet always, it avoided the small blue planet at the center of human memory. To approach Earth was to taste fire. To face humans was to remember pain. The galaxy changed in those centuries. The once proud empires of the Karth Dominion and the Orion Alliance fell into silence, devoured by the very monster they had mocked. Whole star systems burned out, their lights gone from the skies forever. But Earth endured. Its scars became monuments. Its ruins became schools. Its dead became legends whispered in every child's bedtime stories. Humanity had paid the highest price, but it had survived what no other could, and survival turned to something else. Humanity grew, spreading carefully, quietly, never drawing too much attention, never shining too brightly. Their colonies were not glittering empires like the ones that had fallen. They were hidden fortresses, scattered shadows, places built not to impress, but to endure. Every world they claimed carried the same message. We are small, but we will not break. Aliens whispered about these worlds. Traders told tales of human colonies where children learned to fight before they could walk, where songs were sung not of peace but of defiance, where even the old carried weapons with steady hands. To outsiders, these were terrifying places, strange and unnatural. To humans, they were home. The predator avoided them. The galaxy avoided them. And in time, silence became the greatest shield of all. Humanity stood alone, surrounded by empty space, feared and respected in the same breath. Generations turned the story into myth. They called it the Night of Fire, when Earth had stood against the predator and bled but did not fall. They told it in simple words. We were mocked, we were broken, but we endured, and the monster fled. It was not just history, it was identity. Humanity no longer cared what the Council thought, because the Council no longer existed. The empires that had once laughed at Earth were dust, and only humans remained. But with survival came questions. Children asked why the predator feared them. Scholars searched the ruins of fallen worlds, trying to understand. The AI, still alive after centuries, still glowing in its endless circuits, whispered its answer again and again. Because you are different. Because you are not prey. Because you are what it fears becoming. One night, in a rebuilt city on Earth, a child stood on a rooftop looking up at the stars. The sky was dark and quiet, filled with ancient silence. The child asked his mother, "Why does the universe hide from us?" The mother, who carried the memory of 1,000 stories, answered softly, "Because we made it afraid." The child frowned. "But why? We are small." And the mother hesitated. She remembered the stories of sacrifice, of ships burning, of soldiers who chose death instead of surrender. She remembered how fear had been turned into fire. She remembered the last words of the resolve. "It bleeds." She bent down, touched her, child's cheek and whispered the truth humans did not speak loudly but carried in their hearts. Because maybe we were never small. Maybe we were always the monsters, far away in the cold dark of forgotten space. The predator stirred. It had not returned in centuries, but it had not forgotten. In its endless hunger, it had faced a mirror once, and what it saw had unsettled it. It had seen prey fight like predator. It had seen weakness turn into something beyond understanding. And deep in its alien mind, for the first time, it had felt something close to fear. The galaxy had hidden, the predator had fled, and humanity, scarred and alone, had become something more, not rulers, not conquerors, not empires. A shadow in the stars. A reminder carved into history that small things could be dangerous. Fragile things could burn, and prey could rise as hunters. The final words of the legend spread through every corner of the surviving galaxy, whispered in fear and awe. They called humanity small. Now the universe hides from us. And in the silence that followed, a darker thought lingered, never spoken aloud but felt in every heart. Perhaps the predator was not humanity's greatest enemy. Perhaps the galaxy had, not hidden only from the monster in the dark. Perhaps without realizing it, the universe had hidden from something far worse, from the only species that could look into the abyss, bleed, and still whisper back with a smile, "Try again."